U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has postponed a visit to China after a Chinese spy balloon was tracked flying across the United States.
The U.S. military shot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon on orders from President Joe Biden after it traversed sensitive military sites across North America.
They decided without doing damage to anyone on the ground. They successfully took it down, and I want to compliment our aviators who did it.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Hall. The big story tonight.
An object suspected to be a Chinese surveillance aircraft made headlines over the weekend. Here's what we know. Washington said it had been monitoring a high-altitude surveillance balloon in the past week. Concerns over the, quote, spy balloon from China prompted U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to cancel his trip to Beijing. Upon orders from U.S. President Joe Biden, the U.S. military struck down the foreign object. China called the move an overreaction after it repeatedly claimed that the balloon was just a weather airship that had strayed into U.S. territory. Here in the Philippines, there were also reported sightings of an unusual aircraft. Last December, a floating object spotted in Pangasinan became the subject of much speculation. There was no official statement from government about this, but the object was likely an aerostat, which is used for surveillance, at least according to a science expert.
The balloon sighting in the U.S. comes at a critical juncture, following major developments in the defense cooperation between the Philippines and the United States. The two countries had just sealed the deal on expanded U.S. access to military bases in the Philippines. Both countries also agreed to restart joint maritime patrols in the West Philippine Sea. Security experts have since flagged the potential risk of putting additional EDCA sites in the country. They said that the Philippines could be dragged into the brewing conflict between the U.S. and China.
But the Defense Department begs to differ. Defense Secretary Carlito Galvez says the additional EDCA sites could even pave the way for more investments. Meanwhile, the Armed Forces of the Philippines insists that the sites will be jointly managed by Philippine and American forces. The AFP also assures that facilities built in EDCA sites will be funded by the United States, but will be turned over to the Philippines eventually. To help us make sense of these developments, we have International Affairs Analyst Renato De Castro back on the show. Good evening, Mr. De Castro.
Yes, Gavin. Nice to be again. Gretchen, good evening.
Sir, China insists it's a weather balloon. There doesn't seem to be any question with the United States that they're treating it as a security matter. Assuming that the U.S. is completely correct on this, what do you make of the balloon being sighted and clearly being plainly very, very visible?
Well, if that's really the case, I think China is also trying to impress upon the United States we have the capability to, of course, send reconnaissance, a reconnaissance balloon deep into your heartland, the same way as you've been conducting reconnaissance operation along the coast of China. You have a lot of issues wherein you have Chinese fighter planes intercepting American reconnaissance planes that are flying along the South China Sea. So I think in a way, if that is really the case, this is a case of China impressing upon the United States, we can engage you in a game of tit for tat. You can send your reconnaissance plane along the coast of China, although they're still in international waters. We could send reconnaissance balloons right in the United States heartland, if that is simply the case. If the Chinese are saying this is simply a civilian weather balloon that had went on course, you have this, of course, discourse going on between China and the United States on what is the real nature of this incident.
Do you think this was an overreaction by the United States to actually shoot down the balloon?
Well, it went down inside continental USA. In a way, it's exposing American vulnerability to this operation, and also triggered the debate. When also triggered the debate between the Republicans and the Democrats. The Republicans accusing the Democrats of being soft regarding this balloon, And of course, the Democrats saying, we did not shoot it down because it might cause collateral damages. So whatever it would be, whether it's an innocent civilian weather balloon or it's actually a spy plane, it already tricked a sensitive nerve within the United States body politic.
Okay, now if this was in fact a message from China, given the message that China has been trying to impress upon the Philippines as well, would Filipinos be paranoid given this experience to look up and to start looking for these kinds of things and these kinds of messages?
Oh, we don't have to look at the sky. Just recently, you have this ship, Chinese ship that supposed to ask for SOS from the Philippine Coast Guard, and the Philippine Coast Guard was so emphatic with the fact that they did not find any fishing gear, and the log, of course, is missing. So we don't have to look at the sky. We simply have to look at our coast, or we could look at deep inside our exclusive economic zone, where we have 4 Chinese artificial islands that, of course, are full of reconnaissance capabilities. Mischief Reef, Subi Reef, and have about 4 of them operating inside Philippine, exclusive economic zone that are practically military bases and are also listening posts for the Chinese People's Liberation Army's Navy. So we don't have to need to look at the sky. We just have to look at our seas to see that they're all over the place.
Yes, but whether it's the sky or the seas, the line of China that this was just something that went astray, this is a civilian vehicle or the civilian vessel that went astray, remains consistent. What can we do in the face of that kind of a statement and in the face of what to you is clearly just a consistent message as well?
Well, we have to strengthen our counterintelligence capabilities. We have to strengthen what we call our maritime domain awareness capabilities. And also, the major vulnerability on our part is, of course, is our air defense system. Given the fact that we only revived the Philippine air defense system in 2018. From 2005, when we deactivate the remaining squadrons of F-5 fighter planes, we're practically blind when we talk about our airspace. So this is where, of course, EDCA comes into the picture. We have to rely on our treaty ally and, of course, our other security partners like Japan, Australia, to strengthen our capabilities when it comes to, of course, developing our intelligence and, of course, counterintelligence capabilities.
Well, sir, given all
we
of
have-
that, the U.S. also saying that these balloons are actually being used to map out the country, to support their military systems. Given the response of the U.S., do you think that this is a defining moment on how these balloons should be treated? For example, the aerostat that entered our airspace back in December in Pangasinan, how should we treat those incidents if it happens again?
Well, let me address you practically raised 2 questions. Number 1, what will be the implication in the United States? I see 3 possibilities. Probably this will just be a minor episode in, this tense U.S.-China strategic competition. Eventually, Secretary Blinken will finally make his trip to Beijing and this incident will be forgotten. And the other possibility, of course, is it has already touched a raw nerve in American domestic politics. It became an apple of discord between the Republicans and the Democrats. So it would affect how, of course, the Biden administration would have to react on incidents like this. And the third possibility is, of course, the warning from the Chinese Ministry of Defense and Chinese Foreign Ministry that, we will do it. If the same thing happened in the case of China, we will do the same thing. Again, I'm thinking of worst case scenario, if you will have continuous Chinese harassment of those American reconnaissance planes that are flying along, of course, the coast of China.
Yeah, Mr.
So you have 3 possibilities there. In the case of the Philippines, it's high time for us to really develop our, the capabilities
Mr. De
of
Castro.
the armed forces of the Philippines. And of course, in terms of, specifically maritime domain awareness, and of course, also in terms of our Philippine air defense system.
Mr. De Castro, that's actually my final question, just very quickly. In terms of capacity in air defense system, I have seen some posts. I think Jay Batong Bakal was one of those people who pointed it out. He said it wasn't the F-22 shooting this down that was impressive. It was the fact that the weather balloon was way higher, literally at the edge of the atmosphere. Is it true that basically, had we seen something like this at that height, flying over the Philippines, the capacity of our air defense system would actually be very limited to take that down?
Well, actually, what the Chinese did is actually something that the Japanese did during the Second World War. You know, when the Americans were bombing Japan. So what the Japanese did, and I think what the Chinese did, is just use the airstream. And then flow of air that passes through the northern hemisphere. So they just took advantage of it. The Japanese did it, caused some casualties. Again, in Montana, when they sent a couple of balloons, this was out of desperation when you have the strategic bombing being conducted against Japanese cities. So the Japanese, out of desperation, sent air balloons bringing incendiary bombs in the United States, I think killing about 8 people. So this is not really high tech.
Okay.
Probably the Chinese took a page from what the Japanese did in the late 1940s, in the latter period of the Second World War.
Okay. Renato De Castro, maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much. Okay.
For a country located in a critical geopolitical region, should ROTC be made mandatory for our youth? The Senate today continued its hearings on its proposal to change the college curriculum. Mayan Los Bañas with the details.
The discussion on the proposals to make the Reserve Officers Training Corps or ROTC mandatory for college students in the country continued on Monday. Speaking during the Senate hearing, the Akbayan youth insisted that there is no need to make ROTC mandatory. The group said that there are other ways of showing nationalism and love for country other than military training.
Alam po natin, nakikita po natin ang rason ng ibang mga bansa na nasa gyera kung bakit may military training sa kanilang mga sibilyan. Ngayon po, ang Pilipinas ay wala sa gyera. Ang Pangulo na natin mismo, si Ginoong Marcos, ang umamin sa Davos na hindi military solutions ang magiging approach sa China sa West Philippine Sea.
The youth group also suggested that instead of the ROTC, it would be better to just expand the scope of NSTP or the National Service Training Program. Meanwhile, the Student Council Alliance of the Philippines insists the budget that will be used in the implementation of mandatory ROTC must be used for the needs of our basic education, which according to them is under crisis.
Gamitin na lang po sana natin itong pondo na ito sa kailangang 86 billion ng Department of Education sa mga silid-aralan dahil nagkukulang pa tayo ngayon ng 91,000 classrooms. If mahahanapan lang ng paraan itong pondo, sana po ay unahin natin itong mga salik sa krisis ng edukasyon na meron tayo na siyang nagpapahirap sa buhay ng mga ordinaryong mag-aaral.
However, National Youth Commission Undersecretary Ronald Cardema opposed the claims of the youth groups, saying there is a great need to teach tertiary students military tactics as what is done in other countries.
We should adapt. We should prepare our Filipino youth. Kailangan mong bigyan ng konting disiplina, sense of nationalism, at basic skills sa pagdepensa ng bansa para tunay sila maging pag-asa ng bayan.
As for Senator Bato de la Rosa, he agrees that ROTC training can be good for mental health based on his own experience.
Ako nag-PMA. Sa lahat ng problema na dinaanan ko, alam mo kung wala akong training sa ROTC, wala akong training sa PMA, baka tumalong na ako sa building. Nagpakamatay na ako.
De la Rosa said this is the last committee hearing on the issue. And though some youth groups have expressed opposition to the matter, the senator said he is determined to recommend in the committee report the implementation of mandatory ROTC. The senator is also convinced that this measure will pass Congress and that students can expect that by next year, mandatory ROTC will be implemented. Reporting for News 5, Mayan Los Baños, we are One News.
In other news, expect a big-time rollback in pump prices this week. Gasoline will be cheaper by more than 2 pesos a liter, while diesel prices will go down by 3 pesos a liter. Kerosene will also be slashed by 2 pesos and 30 centavos a liter. This rollback follows 3 straight weeks of price hikes as oil stockpile in the U.S. increases. Right after the break, the LTFRB is giving PUV stakeholders another year to upgrade their units. We'll be speaking with Pasang Mazda President Obet Martin. When the big story returns, keep it here on One News. You're watching The Big Story here on One News. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board extends the deadline for the PUV modernization program. LTFRB Chairman Teofilo Guadis III said franchises of traditional jeepneys will still be valid for another year. These were supposed to expire on April 30 of this year, but Guadis explained that only about 60% of jeepneys have been modernized, still far from the 95% target. Several groups have opposed the modernization. They say government is not providing enough financial support to jeepney drivers, especially small operators.
To talk to us more about the extension of the PUV modernization deadline, Obet Martin, President of the Transport Group Pasang Mazda, is now joining us via Zoom. Good evening. Welcome to The Big Story, Ka Obet.
Hi, good evening, Robbie and Gretchen, at sa nakikinig po sa The Big Story sa magandang gabi po.
Sa tingin ko po, marami naman po makakahinga na okay, may extension. Pero kumustahin ko na lang po muna yung jeepney modernization drive. Bakit nga po ba medyo mabagal ang implementation nito?
Actually, Robbie, kanya nagkaroon ng mabagal implementation. Maraming nakapending na application sa Landbank at DB. At ang mga grupong ito ay nag-consolidate na based on the PUV modernization program. Subalit may hinahanap ang ating Landbank at DBP, ang government bank, yung tinatawag natin Local Public Transport Plan. At during one of our meetings with the Honorable Secretary Jaime Bautista about a week ago, pinakiusapan namin yan at ang ating maging chairman ng LTFRB maayos na sapagkat may mga pending application ng ibang cooperatives at corporation dito sa loan na ito para mag-comply sa modernization program.
So, medyo malabo po yung audio, but if I'm understanding it correctly, it's a financing problem. It's also a government subsidy problem.
Yes, nasa financing kami may problema sapagkat ang bangko nga ngayon, maraming hinahanap ng mga requirements dito sa mga nag-consolidate, nag-form ng cooperative at corporation. But yan nga, kaya nang binanggit ko, napakiusapan na namin ng ating secretary na i-work out na nila yan para makapag-comply pa ang marami pang mga operator ng jeepney para sa modernization program.
Sir Obet, na-extend po tayo ng 1 taon. Yun nga lang, hindi po ito yung unang pagkakataon na may extend tayo. Ilang years na po yun. Ano po sa tingin po ninyo ang pwedeng gawin para tulungan po yung mga drivers po natin to have the financial capacity to be able to afford the modern jeepneys? Kasi kanina po, kausap po namin yung taga Manibela, sinasabi po nila, napakamahal po, 2.4 million. Parang nagtaas pa po yung presyo dahil sa pandemya. Paano po ba talaga yung reasonable at yung practical na pamamaraan para magawa po ito, yung target po ng LTFRB na 95% modernized jeepneys?
Well, isa nga, Gretchen, isang nagiging problema yung taas ng presyo ng mga modern jeepneys na yan. Dati, nasa 1.850 lang, naging 2.1, ngayon nasa 2.450 na. At isa ito sa aming mga hinihiling na makausap din upang babaan yan. Ang ginawa naman ng ating pamahalaan, nilakayan ng subsidy. Ang subsidy binigay sa amin noon ay 160,000, ay 80,000. Ngayon, ginawa nila 160,000 hanggang 360 kanya. Makakadagdag tulong na nito. Pero sabi ko nga, kailangan siguro ay magkaroon ng tamang negosasyon sa mga supplier na babayan talaga ang presyo ng kanilang mga modern jeepneys. Masyadong mapakataas talaga.
Okay, Ka-Obet, kabiglang po muna ako. Total nandito kayo, samantalahin ko na. Kamusta naman po ang mga namamasada? Kamusta naman po ating mga jeepney driver at mga operator? Ngayong nagbubukas na ekonomiya, pero nung unang nagbukas na ekonomiya, marami ring ayaw lumabas. Kamusta na po ngayon?
Alam mo, Robby, nakakatuwa na ngayon. Parang normal ng operation natin, pati ang mga modern jeepneys, ang mga itong tinatawag na traditional jeepneys. Medyo maganda na ang kinikita ngayon. Nagkaroon nga lang kami ng mga alinlang itong sinasabi ng ating DOTR, ng ating chairman na hanggang April 30 na lang kami. Kanya yan naman ay na-extend na nga at magpapasalamat din dyan. Siguro itong pagkakataon na ito, Robby, maganda na ang ekonomiya natin, maganda na ang kita natin mga jeepney drivers. Subalit ang nagiging problema pa namin dito, itong presyo ng petroleum product. Yes, there will be rollback to more than 3 pesos sa diesel, pero mataas pa rin yan. Kanya nga kami ay nag-file nitong tinatawag na surge fee na 1 peso. May window hour to from during rush hour sa umaga, 5 to 8. Sa gabi naman, 5 to 8 din. At ito'y dininig nung nakaraang linggo, pero na-reset kami ng by next week pa. Kaya tamang-tama siguro itong pagbaba nito ay makatutulong, pero mataas pa rin, Robby and Gretchen, ang aming diesel sa ngayon.
Okay, sana naman po. Sana makaluwag-luwag para sa ating lahat. Na meantime, maraming salamat po, Ka-Obet. Ka-Obet po, Presidente ng Pasang Mazda. A magnitude 7.8 earthquake killed at least 641 people in Turkey and Syria. Thousands were also injured, while others are still missing following the tremor. Strong aftershocks have been felt in the region, including as far away as Lebanon and Israel. Countries like the United States are vowing to provide assistance as search and rescue operations continue. After the break, volleyball action continues as the PBL returns for its All-Filipino Conference. We'll give you a recap of the games when we return. Keep it here on One News.
watching the big story here on One News. For the big story in sports, the PVL made its highly anticipated return as it opened the 2023 All-Filipino Conference. Here's a look into the opening day matches.
Of sets and the numbers.
The 2023 PVL season is finally here. After the busiest off-season to date, the brightest stars of Philippine volleyball return to the hard court. Armed with a new coach and a new system, the Choco Mucho Flying Titans impressed everyone in the opening match of the 2023 PVL All-Filipino Conference. Madi Madayag unleashed her best game since returning from an ACL injury in the 2021 Open Conference, putting up 11 points on 9 attacks, 1 block, and 1 service ace to lead the Flying Titans in their sweep of the Akari Chargers 25-15, 25-20, 25-20. Tina Wong dished out 21 excellent sets as Kat Tolentino and Bea De Leon chipped in 11 points apiece. The win was also a welcome gift for new coach Dante Alinsinurin, who took over the Titans just after the reinforced conference. In the second game, defending champion Streamline Cool Smashers opened its all-Filipino campaign in dominating fashion as they swept rivals Petrogas Angels 25-18, 25-20, 25-22. Even without Eliza Valdez, the Cool Smashers proved that they have plenty of stars capable of stepping up for the team. 3 players scored in double digits for Creamline. Michelle Gumabao and Sed Domingo both tallied 13 points to lead the Cool Smashers offense, with Tots Carlos and Pangs Panaga adding 11 and 10 points apiece. PVL action returns tomorrow with the PLDT versus F2 Logistics at 4 p.m. and Sherry Tigo versus Signal at 6:30 p.m. And you can catch the games live on One Sports, One Sports Plus, and the Smart Livestream app. Gretchen Ho, we are One News. And before we go, ABS-CBN series FPJ's Batang Quiapo will soon be seen on TV5. Series star Coco Martin met with TV5 Network Incorporated Chairman Manny Pangilinan, whom he thanked for allowing his newest series to air on the Kapatid Network. The action star also shared snaps of his meeting with other TV5 executives as well as ABS-CBN executives. FPJ's Batang Quiapo will start airing on February 13, just half a year since the finale of Coco Martin's historic Ang Provinciano. While it will be based off the original story, Martin said that they added new stories and details to make fans hooked to the show.
Ibang-iba yung kwento, ibang-iba yung mga karakter. May mga kinuha kaming mga eksena na makakapag-inspired dito sa show. Pero talagang sinadya namin na parang, kasi pag sinabi mo kasing teleserye, soap opera, mahabaan ang kwento eh. Kailangan yung bawat karakter, rich yung nila pundasyon eh. Kaya talagang iniba namin siya.
Another 10-year series.
Oh.
Joke lang.
Sa winning formula and FPJ franchise as Coco Martin.
Pero bukod sa Batang Quiapo, there's also Magandang Buhay, airing now on TV5, 9 to 10 in the morning, right before Frontline sa umaga.
Abangan nyo po. And that's the big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more analysis. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
The big story is also available via Signal Play app. Make your free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. Ako po si Gretchen Ho. Stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.